It's now moved back somewhere north of Norway, but what I think is interesting is the speed with which it's moving and the distance with which the weight is moving. So this isn't something that we're talking about for our grandchildren or our children. This is talking about now. It's happening right now, and I think a lot of us, and I include McKinsey in that, are not as prepared as we should be for that shift that is going on. Urbanization is the major driver of that, and that's why I'm personally confident that with urbanization, it is not affected by whether the euro is going to hang together or not. It's not affected about whether we're going to get the debt crisis dealt with in the U.S. in November. There are people all throughout Asia and Africa, but particularly in Asia, that are moving from rural areas to cities week in and week out. It's about roughly 1.2 million people a week are moving from rural areas to cities. It's like gravity. You can't stop them. And I can tell you from living in Shanghai, where the government of Shanghai tried to prevent migrant workers from moving in for about 5 years, they just finally gave up. They said, we just have to assume we're going to have 500,000 people a year coming into the city. And so it's a very interesting discussion when you meet with the mayor and have a view of, have you ever seen a city that's been over 40 million people? How do you organize such a city? That's not in the McKinsey databases, that's for sure, in terms of how to deal with that. But how do you manage with that sort of amount of people? What's the stability? Do you have to have multiple small cities? These are questions that we haven't really grappled with, but they are going to be realities as we move ahead. And again, it's relentless. And what I would say about Asia is it's well into the process, but it's got at least another 20 to 25 years to go. It's just begun in many ways in parts of Asia. So this is going to continue as a force. I've showed this picture before, and I apologize for those who've seen it. This is a photo that I took in Shanghai in 1997. It's a picture, for those of you who've been on the Bund and stayed, we were talking about staying at the Shangri-La Hotel, is where the sort of the grass, it's an onion field in 1997. And it's, again, some of my U.S. McKinsey colleagues they call that Poo Jersey. It's Pudong in that side of it. If you look at that place 7 years later, that's basically the shift, right? It's just moving at a rate that numbers don't really provide the color of where it is. And this is happening in hundreds of cities, not 5 or 10 or 20. I'm talking about hundreds of cities in Asia. And as you mentioned earlier too, that's why we have a belief that cities are a very important focus, even more so than countries, in terms of where the opportunity lies.